Bermuda is a colorful place. Many of its citizens come from various lineages and bloodlines that span worldwide. It is accumulation of various colors, tongues, and communities. However, some communities are often overlooked, one of which being the LGBT community. Being part of the LGBT community is largely frowned upon in most social instances.
How do you feel Bermuda's opinion towards the LGBT community is?
Um, I gotta admit, it's actually very outdated, more or less. They carry a very old, like it's interesting because it's like even in other places, even though they acknowledge that the LGBT community exists, but at the same time they try to denounce it. Bermuda, in my opinion, kind of tries their best to pretend that it doesn't even exist.
Okay.
Like people feel like I feel like that a lot of people, a lot of adults are just like, oh, that's not even a thing. That's just a phase. That's just something that you're just going through right now. That's not an actual thing, and that's why I feel like a lot of people's opinions on it.
In legal matters, Bermuda does what can be said as the bare minimum to accommodate those of the LGBT community. It is illegal to discriminate against those who are LGBT and they are able to serve in the military. However, many things are still out of reach. For example, it is illegal for same sex couples to marry, and same sex couples who marry outside of Bermuda will not be recognized as legally married. It is illegal to legally change your gender. The age of consent is unequal and conversion therapy is not banned. Socially, being openly LGBT can be disruptive and can affect the lives of those who are involved in a negative way.
I definitely can say I have come into contact with negativity, and it has definitely affected my life with my family and my life socially. And it's definitely made it a bit of a bumpy ride when it came to how I express my sexuality and my transition. So it has definitely impacted me more so than I originally thought it would.
My parents are very open about it, or my mom is, and I haven't really had a problem telling either of them, or anyone in my family. Outside of that, friends, it was a little bit harder, but it hasn't had too much of an impact on me personally.
Well, it's more or less that I knew I was bi, but I never was allowed to acknowledge it per se. Like I was definitely raised in a household where I was like, oh, don't be a faggot, don't be gay, and so on and so forth. Like same with everybody else. So it's like whenever I had those thoughts, I did my best to suppress them, or I ignored them. I pretended they never existed. And it wasn't until I hit my 20s that like someone called me out on it, and that's when it clicked in my head that like, oh, I'm bi. And so I guess I never really had a chance to really explore it or express it, or rather I spent a lot of time suppressing it. And so it felt like a physical weight got lifted on my chest once I realized it was there, and I was allowed to, well, because of the people that I hang around, I was allowed to express it and accept it.
I've definitely had sets of hurdles. One being overcoming my own personal dysphoria, as well as trying to look more feminine, because I have a very masculine body. I have a very masculine build. I'm tall and lanky. I have generally a flat chest, and I'm built like a stereotypical male. And again, with the whole facial hair thing, it's people who used to be my friends. I lost friends because of it. But my family and other people aren't very supportive of it. Like, for example, last week it's this week Sunday, my family my younger cousins, were asking me like, why do you have nail polish on? It's not very it's not tough, and I'm just like, what of it? On the outside, I can be very composed about it, and I can kind of scare my cousins because like I'm 6 feet tall, I can look at you like really scarily. But on the inside, it's still it hits you, and On top of that, I don't really know any other people who are transgender in Bermuda, period. Not just trans girls or trans guys. I don't know anybody, so I'm kind of going through this whole process by myself. And I will admit, it has had its difficulties being the only person that I know, and I've had to traverse this alone.
Well, my mom, I came up to my brother, my older brother first, and he was really chill about it. I don't think he really cared. But, and then my mom, I accidentally came out to her because I was talking about my celebrity wife. And then she was like, "You have a celebrity wife? Are you gay?" And I was like, "Oh." I just kind of squealed and turned around. And then she was like, "Oh no, but seriously, are you?" And I was like, "Eh." And she was like, "Are you bi?" And I was like, "Yeah." I didn't exactly want to say pan because before I remember her saying how she thinks kind of things that aren't like LGBT, like things like pansexual and asexual and polysexual is kind of silly, I guess. So I just said I was bi because that's kind of easier than explaining pansexuality. So yeah, and she was all right with it though. She was a little surprised, but she was chill.
However, despite these setbacks, Bermuda has groups that members of the LGBT community can look to for support. For example, the Rainbow Alliance of Bermuda. Even though the odds seem to be proverbially stacked against those involved in the LGBT, things are not as bad as they may seem.
I haven't really had anything extremely negative at my church group. One of my instructors just kind of told me about her experience with it and how it's changed or affected her. And so far, nobody that knows has really outright said anything like threatening or like extremely against it.
Okay.
I have a lot of people who support me, a lot of people I can turn to talk to. So like I mentioned before, people in the Rally Bermuda group who support me and I know I can talk to, as well as other friends in the LGBT community or people who are just allies, and I know I can trust them to talk to them about things.
Well, my parents, my mom mostly, she's very open about it. Some of my extended family, they're very supportive and very open about it. I have some other relatives who are pretty gay. And I have friends that are supportive and kind of understand what I'm going through. And even the ones who don't understand, they're still there.
And I think it's really good. I think it's really good how, despite how the odds will seem to be stacked against you, or how the community seems to be against you, you still have people to turn to, and you still have a lot of support. You have a lot of people behind you, and people that you can trust with your feelings and can go to for support and just general help, or just like vent about issues that you may go through.